Welcome to Talking Pictures Trivia, the podcast in which a group of friends explore movies through trivia. I'm one of these friends, KJ, and with me is...
Tom.
And I'm Chris.
For those joining us for the first time, we start off each episode with 4 rapid-fire trivia questions, and possibly a few bonus questions. Audience, feel free to play along from home. The first question is worth 1 point, and each question after that is worth 1 more point. Then, we'll follow it up with our famous movie rant, where anything goes. Tom, tell us about today's movie.
Walking up to theaters in 1985, we would have had to choose between Friday the 13th, Part 5, the Care Bears movie, Brewers Millions, Police Academy 2, Rambo 2, Pumping Iron 2, and today's movie, Ladyhawke. KJ will be our questionnaire today. KJ, what is Ladyhawke all about?
In Ladyhawke, we follow Matthew Broderick, who is trying to help Navir. Navir is the previous captain of the King's Army, who is a man by day and a wolf by night. With the man, there is a woman, Isabeau. Isabeau? Isabel? Isabeau?
I think it's Isabeau.
Isabeau. Isabeau is a woman by night and a hawk by day. They were cursed. Even though they're in love, they're never people at the same time. When one's a person, the other's an animal. It's terrible. So there's a priest named Imperius who knows that a solar eclipse is coming up, and the curse can be broken if both man and woman stand before the bishop. Matthew Broderick gets caught up in all this, and he helps coordinate everybody together to break the curse so hawk and wolf can live together as man and woman. It's time for question 1. What is the name of Navarre's horse?
Locked in.
Locked in.
Tom?
Goliath.
Chris?
Matthew Broderick tells the story of David and Goliath to the horse.
There it is. Goliath. Points for everybody. It's time for question 2. For a point apiece, what are Matthew Broderick's characters' 2 names?
Locked in?
I locked in with one.
All right, Tom, what name do you have?
I have the mouse.
Chris?
I have the mouse as well, but I also thought it might have been Pierre.
Ooh, close. I'm going to give you guys each a point. His given name is Philippe Gaston. Yeah, it's funny. They say it a lot, but it never stuck in my head after watching this movie.
Is this supposed to be France? Like, where are we?
Yeah, they all have French names, so my
I guess we are, right? Yeah.
It could be
All right.
England, but
That's what it looked like to me. It didn't look like pomp and circumstance enough to be French, but I the name's okay. Whatever. I digress.
Of medieval
I'm sorry.
France is like that, right? I mean, most of it is just not Paris.
Well, the synth drum started in France, so
That's true.
it may.
Yeah, Daft
Oh, man,
Punk, right?
It's time for question 3. For a point apiece, name the rhymes the prisoner claims Gaston did. So at one point in the movie, Gaston is presumably locked in a cell, and it starts with him getting out of that cell. The King's Guard go down to bring Gaston to the gallows, and Gaston's not there. They meet another prisoner who is kind of kooky, and he starts telling them where Gaston is. What are the rhymes?
Oh boy, I remember the scene, but I don't remember what he said.
I'll lock in something.
I lock it, I guess.
All right, Chris, what do you have?
I don't know what the rhyme is, but there had to be something that rhymed with sewer because that's the way he escaped. And I'm guessing that there was something that rhymed with stealing or theft because that's what he was in prison for. But I very much don't know what the actual lines were from the movie.
What do you have, Tom?
The mouse has left the house.
All right, point for Tom. Yes, the mouse he left the house. No mouse today, he's run away. To ease the pain, he's down the drain.
Woof. Okay.
Yeah,
Woof to those.
The level of comedy in this movie, I felt like that was...
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
So that puts Tom in the lead with 3, and Chris is just behind with 2. It's anybody's game going into the final question.
All right, I'm excited.
It's time for question 4. In their final scene, where does Imperius, the priest, want to meet Philippe? the mouse.
Locked in.
So just to give some context, Tom's given a very confused look. The final scene takes place in this kind of a church, I guess. It's the bishop, and Philippe saves the day by throwing a sword or something. And then the priest and Philippe are leaving the church and having a little bit more banter.
Locked in. Okay. I gotcha.
All right, Tom, what do you have?
The pearly gates.
Chris?
Yes, Philippe is going to break the lock on the pearly gates to see him again.
Points for everybody, which would make Tom the winner, but that was a little... I gave a lot of context all of a sudden.
You did,
right?
yeah.
Like, that
yeah.
was...
I thought you were talking about the church or something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I'm gonna call. We're going to bonus.
Okay.
It's time for a bonus question. What is Philippe's favorite thing for dinner?
Locked in.
I can give you guys context again. What scene it like? I can describe the scene this banter is in if you guys want.
Sure, I would take that hint.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is at night. Well, it can't be that late at night. Night is approaching, and he's heading into a barn with the one he calls Ladyhawke, and he's talking to Ladyhawke.
I mean, I remember what he told her to drink, but I don't remember what he said about his favorite foods. I'm still gonna lock in.
All right, I'll lock in, I guess.
All right, Tom, what do you have?
I'm gonna say lamb.
Chris? Yeah, I remember him being pulled up to a plate of apples after he did something really good for the night, and then he says to Michelle Pfeiffer to have some sweet wine and dance, but I don't remember what he said was his favorite food.
He says, Hawk makes a great dinner. I've eaten a lot of Hawk. In fact, Hawk is my favorite thing for dinner.
Oh boy, to the Hawk. He's saying this to the Hawk.
Yeah, to the Hawk. Yep.
Yikes. I guess we should all just congratulate Nick once again for being this week's winner.
Nick, congratulations,
way to be,
buddy.
Nick.
I'm just
He
is on some kind of roll. I mean, we're approaching the end of summer and fall's just around the corner, and he's just taking it. He's gonna be Mr. October in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Way to go, Nick.
Way to be, Nick. And Nick, part of the stipulation of winning all these is you have to go back and watch all these movies so that you know how you won.
Yeah. You've won so many of my movies, Nick. Aren't you excited?
Enjoy this one, buddy.
Stay tuned for our pre-Ferris Bueller, Matthew Broderick comedy-style movie rant coming up right after this break. Join another Talking Studios production, Limited Lexicon, where we play through text-based adventure games. Text-based adventure games were computer games from before computers had graphics. The game uses text to describe a scene, and the player types back how they want to interact with the game. I'll read the text from the computer, and my co-host will feed me commands. This season, we're playing through The Hobbit from 1982 on the ZX Spectrum. Here's a quick sample.
I thought a lot about our first command, and I think it should be no print, because we don't want to print things as we're going along.
I think by default, it's not going to print. And even if I did type print, where's it going to print to? 1982?
I would imagine if we go west, we're going to be south of the troll, right? Just south of the troll land.
Yeah, let's try it.
You go west. The troll's clearing. The visible...
Oh, we died.
All right.
The troll saw us and killed us.
So I think we have to say the answer to the riddle then.
The answer is dark.
Say dark, I think.
Talk to what?
Gollum.
Gollum.
Say Gollum dark.
You talk to Gollum. Thorin says, hurry up.
And we died.
What?
And we died.
So we went northeast last time. So let's go southwest.
You go southwest. Visible exits are north, northwest. You see the valuable golden ring.
Oh.
We're ending it here. That's
Wait.
perfect.
Oh,
That's
right.
perfect.
Limited Lexicon, coming to your podcatcher and YouTube in late 2022 by Talking Studios. And we're back. So guys, you had never really heard of this movie. First watch, anything stand out to you guys?
The first 3 minutes are awesome. It was a trope of 80s movies, I guess, to like have a lot of opening credits and have this really big drawn out like a scene. But this is literally 3 minutes 15 seconds, I think, was what it actually ended up being, of a hawk flying through like picturesque sunsets and sunrises with this incredible like disco synth 80s like cacophony that was happening at the same. It was amazing. I texted the boys as I was watching it. I was 3 minutes in, and it's like, this is the best synth I've ever heard.
Yeah, it is really of its time, right? I mean, that opening scene is like a natural version of Top Gun. It's a feathered Top Gun is what we were watching. And it's, boy, that music, and it just keeps coming back, and it's jarring because it has nothing to do with the look of the movie, which you would guess they're attempting. I don't know what era they're supposed to be in, but they seem to be fairly like there's a sense of authenticity with the costumes and the look of it, right? There's nothing kind of special about anything or over the top about anything with how they appear.
Yeah, there's no modern twist on.
There's no modern twist. There's nothing like they look dirty, right? They look normal, except Michelle Pfeiffer's haircut, which is like a kind of pixie version of Madonna or something like that. Her haircut looks ridiculous, but unfortunately, she's not in the movie very much, so we don't see the haircut very much. But yeah, it's the synth music is weird and distracting, and
it's not on tone either. Like you could have a serious scene, or like you have this like the crescendo of the movie, and then you have this like upbeat synth rock kind of thing. I looked over at my wife. We were eating dinner as I was finishing watching it before we started taping tonight, and I looked over. I was like, this is as if a Mentos commercial turned into a fantasy movie. It's what it felt like. It's like I was waiting for Dave Grohl to give me the thumbs up at the camera because it was all a farce at the end, and it never happened. I do want to touch on something Tom said. Like, I thought the production value of this was amazing. Like the castle that they visit multiple times, and the costuming. Like I thought it, for this era of movies, I thought it looked really, really good for a fantasy piece. I don't know about you guys.
It looked expensive, but not necessarily artfully done. Kind of like the Wheel of Time shows now.
Exactly.
It doesn't look artful. I would say it does not. I agree with that. It doesn't look artful.
Like that that's a legit castle, right? That's an on location castle. Like that's pretty. Like I expected something with this kind of story to be like an on the backlot kind of thing in the middle of a warehouse, not on location at a real medieval castle. What it looked like.
But Mr. Donner, give us a wide shot of that castle. I don't know what it would cost. I guess back then you had to use a chopper, right? You're not going to get a crane that high, but it would have been cool to kind of put it in place. We always see it from below. I don't think we ever saw it from above.
Yeah, the castle's actually in Italy. It's in Abruzzo. It's the Rocca Calascio, which is some fortress in northern Italy. So
but then the priest booby trapped it like a villain in a video game or something.
Yeah.
Why?
Which is really odd. Yeah, we don't know.
What was he expecting?
Yeah, there's a lot of things like that. I mean, we get into some of the problems of the movie. You don't really know what the characters are pursuing. Like, they want to kill this bishop. Rutger Hauer's character wants to kill this bishop, but apparently that won't resolve anything, right? That's the idea. If he kills it, it won't resolve anything.
Did the bishop cast the curse?
It apparently through his association with somebody is what I got.
Okay.
But
I got that he made like a pact with a dark power,
yeah,
in order to like curse them for them falling in love with each other when he was obviously meant to fall in love with Michelle Pfeiffer. So like he being of the holiness decided to like seek a dark god in order to lay this curse upon both of them.
And then another big plot point was that Imperius betrayed Michelle Pfeiffer and the blonde guy. But did we ever find out what that betrayal was?
Well, yeah, he says that it's that the two of them were going to confession to him and confessing that they have fallen in love for each other, and he was supposed to keep that confessional secret. But then he
Oh.
in a drunken stupor blabbed their confessional to the bishop, who also loved Michelle Pfeiffer, and because of that, that's what drove the bishop to do the gnarly dark rituals that, of course, every bishop aims to do.
Yeah, and there's this other factor, which is the actual resolution. And so there's a tension between what Rucker Hauer wants to do, which is sort of nihilistic. We will never get together, therefore we're just going to kill the bishop, and then I guess die after. I'm not entirely sure. And then there's the actual solution, which we don't know what the solution is going to be until it happens. And so you're not waiting for the solution to happen, just something happens. And it kind of comes off as a deus ex machina. And then everything's okay.
Well, Imperia says there's a day without a night and a night without a day coming.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll allow you guys to both be in human form for a little bit. And that's how you break the curse. I think he says that fairly early in the movie is like the goal.
Fairly early in the movie is like an hour and 15 minutes
That's
when they
true,
finally
that's
meet
true.
him. So
That's true.
I guess that's my big takeaway. Last week in the first thoughts, I was like, this would be a much better movie 20 minutes shorter. Like there were entire parts of this. Like there was a part after they meet Imperius, after they know what they have to do, they're traveling back towards the original capital, I guess, or where the bishop is, and they're doing all this like snow scenery. They're going through the snow, and like you spend a good 15 minutes trying to show how Matthew Broderick has helped both of these characters. Like, are you trying to make me like Matthew Broderick more? Like, he's already likable, and I don't think that what they did made him any more likable, nor did it. It just kind of jumbled up. It jumbled up there was a beginning, there was a middle, and end. The beginning was you find out what the problem is. The middle is you find out that there's a solution, and then there's 20 minutes in the middle of getting from that point to the actual end of the movie that I just felt like didn't need to be there.
I agree. It doesn't need to be there for this movie, but it might be my favorite part of the movie. That it also kind of shows the night and day. And Matthew Broderick, this is, again, it falls flat, but it could have been really funny the way he's talking up what the other person said and kind of lying to each of them. I did enjoy that. That was one of the few like endearing parts of the movie.
But it's also a little weird that he has to lie. But at one point he lies about what Ladyhawke says about Rucker Hauer.
They love each
character.
other.
She never stopped thinking about you, which she doesn't say anything like that. No. Instead, she just dances and hangs out with Matthew Broderick. Why it's weird. The impression you get from him lying is that Ladyhawke and Wolfman are not actually supposed to be together, that eventually she's going to go off with Matthew Broderick.
Right, he's playing matchmaker or something. Yep.
He's playing matchmaker, and it turns out, in kind of classic romantic comedy, actually these two people are meant for each other. So it's weird that he has to manufacture lies when the movie is at the end telling us actually they are star-crossed lovers.
Watching this movie gave me a huge insight into every D&D character that I've ever seen KJ play, by the way. I feel like Philippe is at the core, or at least a nucleus of a lot of the different things that KJ works into his role play when he plays D&D. Like, just the character, he doesn't really do a whole lot, but he does a lot at the same time. Like, and he does it in a way that's like strange and weird, but he gets to the end point. It's very strange, but it was enlightening to me.
Yeah. So that describes KJ's role in this podcast. It's strange and weird, but he's the one who gets the job done.
He's the guy that does everything behind the scenes and sets everything up, but he doesn't really show.
Yeah, right. Mostly making comments that aren't that funny, but it's obvious he intends them to be funny.
This episode got real meta real quick.
Yeah.
Well, how about Doc Ock in this movie?
That was another one of those, like, oh my goodness, that's another really good actor in this. I know this is in the early 80s, right? Was it 82, 85? What was it?
85, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, like, these people hadn't really broken in all the way yet, but it was like Rucker Hauer's in this, and Michelle Pfeiffer, and then you have him, then you have Broderick. All these people are like, they're going to be much bigger stars than they are in this movie. It was interesting to see them all collected together. But they had another one that's like, why are you even bringing this guy in here? Like, what is the purpose of giving this guy a name? He could literally be, go get me the wolf, and a whole bunch of people run into the forest and try to trap the wolf. Like, you're you're giving me this guy. You're giving an entire scene. I know it was very long, but you're giving me an entire scene where you wake the king out of a nightmare to say that Caesar is here,
Mhm.
and then it ends up being Alfred Molina, and he does nothing but like grin at the screen with some gnarly medieval teeth.
And it's also the scene where he then goes up to trap the wolf, the Rucker Hauer character, which presumably is the evil plan. And the reason why he fails to trap the wolf character is that he just gets the wrong wolf, right? He doesn't really.
Presumably, he's gotten a bunch of wolves.
He's gotten a bunch of wolves, and then Michelle Pfeiffer's Ladyhawke character Isabeau knocks Alfred Molina into one of his own traps, which closes on his head, which somehow kills him.
So Nick, if you're listening, go back and watch this movie, because if you were here, you would absolutely bring up Doc Ock's death in this movie.
Yeah.
And the trap on his head.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, it's odd because like the he also fails on his own accord. He just gets the wrong wolves, right? And like the fact that he dies seems almost incidental to his failure. It's not like she succeeded in defending him. It's just he he happened not to get the wolf, and now he's dead. Like the whole thing doesn't feel compelling. It doesn't feel threatening. This whole movie is, you're not waiting for anything, right? You're not waiting for anybody to get anywhere. The solution to the movie is like there will be a solar eclipse at some point.
The solution to the movie is just wait 2 hours and it'll be over.
Yeah, that's it. If they never go anywhere, if Rucker Hauer and Michelle Pfeiffer's characters never go anywhere and just hang out, they'll be okay, because then a solar eclipse will happen.
But don't they have to be? They have to be in the presence.
Oh, they have to be in the presence of the bishop. Okay.
Which, who knows why? But I mean, they have to be in the presence of the bishop when it happens.
Mm-hmm.
So saith the Ladyhawke canon. That okay. All this being said, I did enjoy watching it. I'm not upset that I watched it, but it did need to be 2 hours. I need to be an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if it's an hour and a half, I think you can forgive some of these like shortcomings that it has, because it's just a fun little medieval trope, a fun little medieval, walk through the woods. At 2 hours, it needed a little more plot that it didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was either this or Newsies is what I was debating between.
Oh God, I haven't seen Newsies on purpose.
I never saw that one either.
Oh, maybe we'll do another childhood block and we'll bring a Christian Bale movie. So, you're kind of planning this movie. You have this cool idea: the wolf during the night and the hawk during the day. When is Matthew Broderick supposed to sleep?
That's a good question.
And then, how do they actually function? How do these two people actually function without a Matthew Broderick character? Or like, how long have they been doing this? And what did that look like before they got Matthew Broderick involved?
I don't know.
Right? Who knows? Hands in the air.
It feels like maybe it was very recent. Like this is a, like within the last few months, maybe.
Yeah.
But not because he's like the former captain, right? Like, I guess it's early enough that the people still recognize him, but he's been replaced already, so it wasn't like yesterday.
It wasn't yesterday, but maybe it wasn't years.
Right.
I don't know. I found like when it kind of unlocked in my head, between the name of the movie, because I didn't look up any trailers, I didn't watch anything, I didn't look up any spoilers, and so I didn't know anything about it going in. All I knew that the name was the Ladyhawke, which reminded me of college bowling. So Nickel understand that if he actually listens to this episode. So all I knew was going in was the name, and then it took me, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes to realize, oh, Michelle Pfeiffer is the hawk and he is the wolf. I was like, that's really heartbreaking. I guarantee that this is going to be a love story, and that these two are going to be animals that are always kind of crossing, like ships crossing in the night kind of thing. But that story, that romantic love story, was never really taught. Like they said, yeah, we never get to see each other. By the way, let's go sword fight over here. Like, I feel like what would just synth drums. Let's have this epic medieval fight to synth rock. But like, what could have been like the core of a really interesting kind of emotional love story was glossed over for a guy booby trapping a castle. I don't know. It could have been something great. Maybe it was never meant to be.
Yeah.
I think it could make a good TV show now.
Maybe I would have loved to see just the whole thing from Matthew Broderick's point of view. Just this sort of like put upon, like servant of two masters, put upon guy. Like very much like a Figaro, a sort of like Figaro figure who has to kind of deal with these sort of demanding masters and what have you. That could be fun, though. That like his jokes aren't that funny. Right?
No.
I still like. What was the joke in the beginning about like escaping my mother's womb?
Yeah.
That was him. That was him getting out of the sewer, right?
Yep.
Yeah, he's get
But
like I.
the punchline is he remembered that. He remembered trying to do that.
Yeah,
That was the
that's-
punchline.
And there's another punchline where he doesn't remember who his mother was.
And some of his bits with God are pretty good, but it's only because they're kind of sacrilegious. Like they're not actually funny. It's just, oh, I can't believe he said that to God. Like that kind of like that was the
Yeah,
punchline.
and Matthew Broderick is charming.
Mm-hmm.
Right, he brings a sort of life to the role, despite these lines he has to say. He actually brings a little bit of a life to the role, as does Imperious, that is just missing in other things. And like I mean, I'll say this 1,000 times, I love Michelle Pfeiffer. I think she's a really talented actress and has been giving great performances for years. There is not a thing she does in this movie. She has nothing to do, right? Like I'm trying to remember an action she is responsible for, and mostly
she did something. She looked like she was in pain when she was being hugged by Rucker Hauer at the end. Like this love story, that we've been sold on this entire thing. Like he embraces her and like picks her up by like around like the thighs, like she's above him, and she just looks like she's agonizing. Like, why am I with this man? Like that was what I got out of the whole thing.
Yeah.
The other thing I was wondering while watching it, what prompted this movie? What happened right before 1985 where they said, you know what? We need the Superman guy to make a fantasy comedy. This is going to work. This is going to make bazillions. So I started looking up other movies. Dragon Slayer came out, Conan the Barbarian, Beastmaster, Krull. But did those make enough that this was the plan?
I don't. When did the Camelot film come out?
Well, Legend was 85.
Okay.
Excalibur was 81. That was a pretty popular movie.
Excalibur, that's it.
I would say Excalibur and Dragon Slayer was 81. So I think those all came before, and this is definitely let's make a period piece. Beastmaster 82, Krull 83.
Okay.
Mhm.
So it was,
And where was Conan O'Brien? Conan O'Brien. Where was Conan the Barbarian?
Conan O'Brien came out in 1982.
Yeah,
Might have been
because
born in 1982.
Excalibur was a big hit, and that was a John Borman film, and apparently it's a very good movie also.
Have you never seen it?
I haven't seen it. No. What do
Yeah.
you think of it?
It's pretty good. I enjoy it, but I like I said, I dig these. I dig fantasy. That's why Star Wars is my favorite sci-fi, because it's really fantasy and not sci-fi.
Yeah.
So I dig this. I dig this genre of stuff. So that's why I think I'm a little bit more lenient on this movie than I probably should be, because it was pretty tough.
Mhm.
Well, I'd like to once again congratulate our own Figaro, who serves way too many masters, Nick. Nicely done, Nick.
Yay, Nick.
Mhm.
You know what?
Indeed.
Nick doesn't know what it takes to be a Ladyhawke. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Is that a bowling?
That's the bowling reference. that literally one person or maybe two people will get, but I had to throw it in there.
Did you guys have a team that played at night and a team that played during the day?
No, we did. But there was when we college bowled, there was I think it was just a Morgan State. No, Morehead State. That Morehead State University. They
Mhm.
were the Hawks, and their female bowling team were the Ladyhawks. And anytime anybody would throw a strike, they would all together chant, "You don't know what it takes to be a Ladyhawke." And they were very good, so that happened quite often. So
lot.
you heard it quite often throughout a weekend of bowling, and it just sort of stuck in my head. Like
Mhm.
as soon as you said this title, I was like, "You don't know what it takes to be a Ladyhawke, KJ." But
It's
definitely
true.
like an inside joke that two people are going to understand that may listen to this never ever in their lives.
You can rate and review this show anywhere podcasts are available. For those viewing in YouTube land, if you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the Talking Studios channel for all our exciting content, and follow us on Twitter at Talking Studios. Check out other shows by Talking Studios, including Keep Making Movies, where we explore micro-budget films, Limited Lexicon, where we play through text-based adventure games, and Get the Point, where we slowly reveal a movie poster and try to guess which movie poster it is. Got a question for us? Call the Talking Studios hotline at 201-467-8679 and leave a message. It may be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to Talking Pictures Trivia wherever fine podcasts are found.
Join us next time when we discuss Orochi from 1925, otherwise known as Serpent. Stay tuned for our first impression of Orochi.
Ding, 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 ding.
Next week, we'll be discussing Orochi from 1925. Chris, how was your watch?
This was very much the first watch for this movie for me. I'm not well versed in silent films, and definitely not well versed in Japanese silent samurai films. I enjoyed parts of it. I thought it was a hard watch, even though it was only like an hour and 10 minutes. It felt like a little bit longer. There are a couple really, really poignant parts. I really liked how they opened and closed the movie. We'll talk about that next week probably. But overall, I'm glad I watched it, but I will probably never watch it again, if I'm being 100% honest. What about you, Andy? How was your first impression?
I would say it's pretty similar. Not familiar with the general terrain, and yeah, I'm curious how like the themes in the movie match up with other themes, Japanese cinema, silent cinema around the time. But I did a lot of eye rolling at many parts. And KJ, what do you think?
Yeah, so audience, Tom's doing the questions, but I actually kind of recommended this film. And Chris, I didn't even think of that. If this is one of your first silent films, yeah, that's a whole nother can of worms to open. Tom, Andy, and I have seen at least a few silent films. I know Andy was on our The Man Who Laughs episode.
Yeah.
So, but so I
way different than this.
Yes, very different, and that's kind of why I'm bringing it here, audience. Audience, if you haven't seen Orochi, one of the things that makes it different from other silent films is it's narrated. So in Japan, the silent films were generally or could be narrated, as opposed to, in the States, they just had an orchestra playing and you relied on the intertitle cards. But how I found the film was I was doing searches for essential Japanese movies and came across like Tokyo Story, Osaka Elegy, Meishi, really great films. And then one of the films was I Was Born, But, which was a silent film, which was also really good. I enjoyed it. And then on that list was Orochi. And I'd watched it, I guess, almost a year ago now, and I thought, man, this is so different because of that narration. So I really wanted to bring it to Talking Pictures Trivia. But on this watch, it is pretty disconnected. It's, as Chris said, it's a short movie, but it's not an easy movie to sit through. So audience, take your time, maybe do it in a few different stages. Yeah, how about you, Tom?
I did enjoy very much the Benchi kind of voice narration. And I think that's the reason to see it, is the kind of voiceover narration. It's very impressive. She differentiates the characters in interesting ways. She has incredible vocal range. And while the film is interesting for, I think, like a lot of the fight choreography is actually pretty interesting. It seems to be a time in Japanese cinema where that style of fighting is really new. It's being introduced. Unfortunately, because of the speed of the film, the grace of the fighting is kind of lost. It looks a little choppy until the last scene where we have this great crane shot that looks down on the fight and you get to see a little more of the choreography of it. But I think the reason to see this film is, as KJ mentioned, that voice-over narrator, which, if you look at the history of Japanese silent films, which is more extensive than silent films anywhere else in the world, it continued into the 1930s. It seems to have been because of this tradition of voice-over narration, and so it's a really great insight into this kind of interesting cultural product.
Audience, you can find Orochi on YouTube if you do a quick search. Wow, Talking Studios.